Welcome to the Morning Ritual Podcast. Here we uncover how small daily practices hold the key to a more aligned life. Rituals help us turn the mundane into the meaningful. They help us remember our values and visions and realign us with who we really are. This is not about overnight transformation. It's about intentional living, having presence over perfection. Each week, we hear from teachers, artists, healers, and creators about the rituals that keep them grounded, clear, and aligned. Their stories remind us that living intentionally isn't just possible, it's transformative. So take a breath and settle in. I am here with Nikki Leader. How are you, Nikki?
I'm so good, thank you.
So just a little background for our listeners. I met Nikki probably a year ago through the studio, the space here in London, which we're filming from right now. And my really good friend Charlene, who's actually behind the cameras on the tech, she purchased a soul plan reading for my birthday with you.
She did.
And so that was my first real getting to know your work. And then since then, Nikki has been here at the studio doing workshops, and I've had the great pleasure of getting to work with you more. So welcome.
Thank you.
And after all that, a year of getting to know each other, I still don't know the story of how you got into this work. I know it is mega. I know it was a big turning point in your life. I don't actually know the full story. Could we start there?
We can. I think it's a great place to start because it was 25 years ago. A very big traumatic thing happened. So I'll rewind a little bit because when I was a child, I guess I used to sleep with my sheet over my bed, over my face in bed. And looking back, and I just remember at that point I blocked it out, but I remember seeing things all the time, feeling super sensitive to everything. I guess through the work that I've done recently, it's actually, I just didn't feel safe in the world at all. So roll on. And back in 2003, actually we'll go to 2000, I met an energy healer. And back then, there weren't many of them visible, shall we say. And I used to drive on my school run past this shop, and it was called the Energy Therapy Clinic. And I kept looking at it and thinking, what is that? Because there was nothing in the window. And I wondered if it was electricity or gas, like an energy. Because I knew nothing about this stuff. And one day I went in there and I said to this lovely girl, Sarah, who became a really, really good friend of mine, what is this anything to do with what you do? And I showed her this magnetic bracelet, and she kind of smiled, a coy smile. And she says, well, why don't you come and see me? And I'll show you what I do. And I went for a session. She put her hands on my shoulders and I completely wept. Just everything let go. So that day, first kind of turning point, I guess. 2 years later, I had a very big car crash and my partner died in the car crash. And I had met somebody before then who did tarot readings, and she was a little old lady down in Devon who I became very connected to. And my father and my stepmother used to go for readings there, which is so weird because I would never have put my father down for having a tarot reading. So that was quite a shock, to be honest. And my last tarot reading with her, it was the accident was all over it. It was all over it. I won't go into too many details, but it was on reflection. It was all over it. But at that stage, I had done with this girl, Sarah, I'd done one workshop called Meet Your Spirit Guides because she had this poster up. And I always like to do something quite different. And I'd never seen anything like Meet Your Spirit Guides, but I'm always up for it. So I did the workshop, and I guess in a way I met my spirit guides. And that was so awakening for me. And it felt like I just discovered the biggest banquet or the biggest, most awe-inspiring landscape or the biggest, it just had this totally expansive, my mind just went like this.
Okay, can I pause? What was meeting your spirit guides for the first time like? Were you in an energy healing session? Were you in a workshop setting?
It was in a workshop setting, and the workshop was called Meet Your Spirit Guides, and it was run by a tutor at the College of Psychic Studies in London.
Okay.
As soon as I walked into the workshop, I knew I was going to meet this lady again. It was such a recognition of somebody. And I did the workshop and I sat down and she gave out little objects and we partnered up with somebody and we just looked at the object and follow after a meditation where she taught us how to open up our energy and our mind. I started reading for this guy and everything I said to him about his family and alcoholism in his family. And I only had a stone in my hand.
And this was just coming through you?
This was just coming absolutely.
You didn't know this guy?
Through. Never met him before in my life. But everything I said totally resonated. And I left that place going, oh my goodness, something's massive is happening here. And then I had the accident and I got back in touch with the College of Psychic Studies because I was driving along one day and in my mind, I said, there's a car crash very near here. So, and they often say that how you experience trauma, that might continue until you kind of ground it into a reality. And I can only imagine that because for me, it was a car crash, I started to see accidents before they happened. And then on the radio, I would hear, oh, there's been a really big accident on the M3. And I was very close to the M3. And that particular day, I thought, okay, I need to manage this because this is not helpful for me at all. So I called the College of Psychic Studies and I said, I'd really like to get in touch with Ange Watkins, who was a tutor at the Psychic College, and I'd like to do a workshop with her. And they said, I'm really sorry, fully booked, massive wait list, not going to happen. So I thought, okay, put me on the wait list. That's fine. And she only ever did one short 4-week course that I got onto. And she's never done another one since, now is retired. But I got onto that course. And within 2 sessions, I went for a sitting with her as a medium. And she brought through my partner. She brought through my grandfather. And I instantly recognized she said things that there is just no way. There was no doubt. And since then, many mediums have brought through. I mean, I can go to a church and the medium will say, I'd like to speak to you. I've got a blue car with you. And it was a blue car that I had the accident in. But the story really just at that instant, I guess that was the turning point. From then, I trained as a medium at the college. I stayed there for about 7 years. Not because, I mean, from the first session, I brought through somebody's grandfather sitting in the library and da-da-da.
Wow.
And it was clear that I had a gift that I was going to use. And I decided that I would train as absolutely the best I can. Because I know that people often say, is it 10,000 hours that you need to really master something? And I didn't necessarily clock that, but I only heard that really recently. And I thought, there is something, you know, not everybody who has a car crash trains to be a medium. You know, it's just not a thing. But it almost became non-negotiable. My entire diary was cleared. I didn't drive a car for about a year. And all I did was just get on a train. I took off my watch. I didn't wear a watch that night. I've never worn a watch since then. And I have immaculate timing. Everything that's happened in the world on a global scale, you know, all the indigenous tribes said, in 2012, there would be this shift in consciousness for humanity and that we would start to ride a wave of everything becoming dysfunctional and, you know, destructuring themselves. And I guess for me in 2003, that was my destructuring of my old life because everything changed then. And it wasn't a conscious thing. I must do this. I must make it a career. I need to do this because any other reason other than I didn't even know why. I just got on the train. I got to the college. I trained and I just kept doing it. It was just like a clockwork thing. And I did then decide I was working in different things that time and I've had lots of different jobs, but that has remained under the surface for really since then. Actually. So I've been doing this a long time with mediumship. And then I actually trained as a massage therapist first. And the girl who I gave a massage to turned around to me and she said, "Do you know what Reiki is? Because you've just given me Reiki."
Wow.
And I said, "I have no idea what Reiki is. Tell me." And so there have just been things that people have said to me that have just, I guess, opened everything up. And it's like, well, let's go and find out what Reiki is, because this is really interesting too. So the higher power that I completely believe is in charge in so many ways. We're 50% of that, and they have the other 50, maybe stroke 80%. And that is really how it started.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, I remember when we did the soul plan reading, which I want to get into like a little bit later about what soul plan readings are, because people might be interested to learn more about that.
Yeah.
But during our reading, you said things about what I was like as a little girl. It was like 5 minutes into the session and you nailed it. And I was just like, what the heck? And this was my birthday of this year or last year? I can't remember.
Last year.
Oh God, time is flying.
When is your birthday?
January. So it was like a year and a half ago?
No, it must have been this year then.
Okay. I don't know.
It was last year.
I don't know, but it must have been 6 months ago, because about 9 months ago, or November of last year, I spoke to a psychic when I was over in the US, and she was telling me things about my wedding, which happened 2 months ago in June.
Yeah.
And this was over the phone. And the things she was saying about the venue and what I would look like and everything that would be happening on the day, very specifics, she nailed. And so I've had these experiences where I'm like, I know this is legitimate. I don't know how it works. But then I notice there's bits of me that I'll get a gut feeling, I'll get an instinct of something, I'll act on it, and I'm like, aha. Or I'll be surprised that I'm like in alignment with something larger, like let's say, like we were talking about before this call about what's going on astrologically. So if there's a listener who's like, I feel like I'm really intuitive and I feel like I'm picking up on things, I'm not sure how to hone that, where would you send somebody like myself or a listener who's like, I want to dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, everybody is intuitive. It is the sixth sense that we all have it. Not everybody will use it in the way I do or go and see a psychic, and that's okay. But everybody has intuition and they use it as a sixth sense, but very few people follow it. But what is happening, gosh, I could go on for this. So what is happening in the world at the moment is there is a shift in the energy field of the world. And what that looks like is there is more photon light literally coming onto the planet. If you imagine a torch in a corner on a shadow, the more light it is, the more shadow you're going to see. So there is an energetic shift going on that is really opening up. And I'm not sure whether you've noticed it, but I have over 30 years, you know, I would never have talked about any of this, you know, even 10 years ago. People talking about meditation, it'll be, you know, really, really off you go to India and maybe, you know, you do it there. But it just wasn't a thing. And now the whole of social media is full. YouTube and everything is full of psychics and tarot readers and people doing. So there is a real renaissance of tarot. And intuitively, people, particularly of your generation, I come from a different generation, but you know, you're wired differently. There's no doubt in my mind, and much more open, maybe finding it more difficult to ground, which we will talk about, I'm sure. Hence the anxiety through this generation and the influx of social media and mobile phones, all that sort of thing. You know, the electronic magnetic field is changing. So there's different things to deal with, but intuitively, I always feel it's quite fun to you know, play with your own intuition and look at things. And if you can't make a decision, just look at both options and close your eyes and then literally open your eyes. Which one does it fall on? But then go with that. And it's one thing knowing about your intuition and listening to it, but trusting it, that is a whole different ballgame. And it's the trusting it that is so, so important, because out of that comes a greater form of self-esteem, of self-confidence, because there is never a wrong decision.
Yeah.
And that is an absolute baseline. There is never a wrong decision, ever. So whether you feel you've made that choice intuitively or whether you've just simply made that choice, because some people are just more open, and they have different struggles in the world. And some people who work in big corporate, businesses, they're in their very left brain and it's all about money and the masculine world. And that's where we operate from the left brain. The feminine brain is the intuition and the dreamlike. And that's where it's so interesting is now this shift towards, more conscious leadership and more intuitive decisions made in business.
Yeah.
There is no wrong decision. So it's a balance. It's all a balance between feeling very centered and then listening to your gut. But I believe that the onset of the promotion of gut health is no coincidence.
Yeah.
So on another layer, if we go physical, let's clear the gut, let's detox, mental ways of doing that, but spiritual, let's get in touch with our intuition, which is our gut feeling and our gut sense. Then you can see how all of that is interconnected. So things that we're seeing, that people really sorting out their gut health.
Yeah.
For me, they're sorting out their connection to their intuition. So they will really, because at the end of the day, everything on the internet with AI potentially is not true.
Yeah.
So I believe that intuition is absolutely the superpower of the future.
Yeah, that's a
It is.
point, I think, because I remember we talked about this a few months ago, and that really stuck out to me, that you were like, it's going to be nearly impossible to see what is true and what is false because of this AI world we're entering, but actually being able to tune in and tap into your intuition and say, what is true for me is going to become so much more important, so much more necessary. And it's no coincidence. We're all about gut health these days. It's like incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And in order to make a choice, even if it's a very tiny stopping point, there is a stopping point where we look at 2 things or 3 things or whatever. When we are making a choice, subconsciously we stop because we have to we have to focus on more than one thing. And so again, very indirectly, we're stopping, not just what do I think might be right? There's just such a big connection between all of this stuff that I'm watching happen subconsciously that maybe people aren't even aware of what they're doing.
Yeah.
That they're doing it. It's wonderful. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because as this world evolves and things change on such a completely different scale, people call it spirituality or whatever you want to call it. There is a deeper connection going on to ourself and self-awareness and a more still part of our soul, where people are not so, it's not so woo-woo anymore. Still, for a lot of people, it is.
Yeah.
Very much so. But that will change. It will change because as they're talking about Gen Z, rather than drinking a lot or going on raves, it's now about the ice baths and yoga places to go. And Gen Z are looking back to ancient wisdom now. Again, every generation, they're wired differently. They're born under a different astrological sky, so they have different energy to them. And there is a fascination now with ancient wisdom. I have, even when my youngest daughter's friends were sort of 17, 18, they'd come back and they'd stand by me in the kitchen and eventually they'd say, "Oh, Nikki, I gather you're a medium." And they'd look at me and we'd have a little chat about it and what did that mean and what did it look like. And they weren't scared of it at all.
What would you tell them? Like
I would
17?
just say...
Because I'm so curious, because I know you have corporate clients and I know you have very high net worth individuals and big companies and that have historically had this very more masculine, left-sided brain. Left-sided brain?
Yes.
Because logical, practical.
Yeah.
So, and a 17-year-old to me is logical. They just were there. So, but who knows what?
But they're not.
But they're not. They're wired differently.
the logic stuff comes from school. But as a baby and as a young child, totally they see or believe in fairies, or they are creating all the time. And that's what we then lose, as we go through life, because then this very grounded, structured, logical, what should we, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all those things, that's where we lose the balance. And now what I'm loving, creative people, musicians and poets and artists, they're sort of channeling all the time, everything. They're bringing something out of nothing. And that's really what creativity is. So I guess that's how I described it to younger people is I tune in like a radio to a different dimension, a different energy where it's very, very fast energy. But in my world, that's how we leave the physical body, and that's where we go when we pass. So we don't, energy can never disappear. So the energy of our body doesn't disappear.
Goes somewhere. And you're tapped into that somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's more how I described it. And then, sometimes they say, oh, so you talk to dead people. And I go, well, yeah, in a way.
But their energy's not dead.
That's how you want to put it.
Their energy is alive, just somewhere else.
Yeah. But it was really, it's great because everybody, those little seeds that are planted, and they might go back to their mum and dad who think you go into a box and that's it. And maybe that is it. I'm not saying that any of this is, absolutely and undoubtedly the truth, but it is my truth because I just have too much evidence of, working in churches and bringing people. I have no idea who these people are. But when I used to work in the churches and I would just bring messages through, they understood exactly who it was. And to this day, in my tarot readings, they're very multi-layered. I don't really do much from a book, because I think having trained as a medium and the channeling just comes through all the time. So a reading is always very multi-layered. Often, more recently, it's very much been about wounds, because people are really having to let go of their wounds now before we travel towards next year, which is a very different energy. And somebody in spirit might come through, or there'll be something that really resonates, and it might be an age where something really traumatic happened. And that's seems to be a lot of the readings. And that's buried subconsciously. They will never find that unless somebody who's channeling or a psychic or something says, what happened when you were 4?
Yes. Yeah. But I love the conversations these days around connecting to inner child and caring for inner child wounds and doing that work. And working with an energy healer or tarot or a psychic or medium will help you tap into that right away. But I just think people are more aware of that idea of healing a wound from when you were 7, which is so important because I'm seeing a lot of adults in the public eye, I don't want to name names, acting like children and they're in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. So most of the world right now is operating from wounded child.
Yeah.
Because most of those wounds have become, they've just continued and unrecognized. So where I see the world moving from now is moving from wounded child into conscious adult. Now, many of our global leaders are all operating from wounded child. And I don't feel that's a secret particularly. And unless they've done some work on that, of course, and that is without judgment, because we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And whether you believe or disbelieve or, in somebody's truth, that's just what it is. The ability to be able to detach from that and allow them their journey on a much higher level is to say, whatever their purpose is in this world, they would not be here unless they had one. Now, we may not like that. And I know that controversially, with all the horrendous things that are going on, we also know on a very basic level that each and every one of us, our greatest gift has probably been our challenges in life. And what level and scale those challenges come are, I believe, part of the blueprint of this lifetime. But I also believe that we have many lifetimes, and there's every chance that if we feel powerless in one lifetime, there's every chance that many lifetimes ago we were the abuser of power. So we come back and we relive another lifetime to say, okay, I'll experience this. And how can I heal that karma?
Interesting. Yeah. During our soul plan reading, something you said, and I'm sure it's something that comes up every reading, but you were like, your soul chose this life. Your soul chose these challenges. Your soul chose these gifts. Your soul chose these lessons.
Yeah.
And that got me so excited because the challenge, the difficult stuff then became like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's go. Like, I meant to go through this. And I felt seen in a way that was like really healing. So could you, because before doing my reading with you, I hadn't really heard of Soul Plan. I mean, Charlene had told me about Soul Plan, and that's why she gifted it to me, because she experienced it herself. But I had never heard of it, and I highly recommend. So what is your little like quick summary pitch on a Soul Plan reading?
So the quick pitch on a Soul Plan reading would be, it's a roadmap. It's a roadmap of the soul and the soul's choices. It is like a spiritual life coaching session in some ways. And depending on how much of this exploration somebody's done, I will always know intuitively and then tailor the Soul Plan reading to what they might be able to receive. But I know also they'll receive on a soul level. So it's a chart, really. It's a system that incorporates numerology, the Egyptian alphabet, astrology, and it's based on the sound of the letters of your birth name. So everybody, the letters, each letter of your name has a sound. Now, if you look at that sacred sound, when you put that together, I would describe that as your energetic footprint. It's the sound, your frequency of who you are energetically in this lifetime. So all I ever take is the birth name. I don't need time or date or anything like that.
Okay.
And I haven't explored them all, but I know there's lots of different modalities that people can use to ultimately get to a deeper level and explore who they are. We talked about human design, for instance, earlier on. But what I love about the Soul Plan is it doesn't label you as anything. So until you've had a Soul Plan, you won't recognize this system. When you've had the Soul Plan or on delivery, you will start to recognize things that come up in the delivery of that. So the chart is like a Star of David in a way. So we have divided up simply into two halves of the life. We have your worldly challenges, talents, and goals, which we discuss, and then we look at the spiritual. So that would probably move into the sort of 40s, 50s time of life.
Okay.
And we look at all of those, but again, it's very, very multi-layered. But when you start to recognize the challenges that you've had, and I can't speak for your experience, but you know, it all makes total sense for most of my clients at the end of it.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd probably say all my clients, actually, dare I say it. I don't think I've done one yet where somebody said, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. I don't recognize that at all. Unless I've got the spelling of a name wrong or something. And even one thing like that can change the entire dynamic.
Yeah.
So they are deeply powerful. I've done them for people who've been CEOs and, you know, they've looked at it from a very logical, oh yes, let's see what my past is or whatever. But then I might say, what happened when you were 7? Let's go back there. And I remember one where this chap lived in Uganda, and at the age of 7, there was ethnic cleansing in Uganda at that time. And that night, when he was 7, he instantly recognized, and that was the night they fled with his parents, with Uganda. He was absolutely traumatized.
Yeah.
That in that 1 second, he completely let go and cried. And I get through lots of tissues and he just let go. Just then, it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you've got, how, in quotes, successful you think you are. You have a wound. We all do. We come into the world with a wound. And that's why I love the Soul Plan reading, is because we really get to the nub of something that opens up a whole new world. You know, with an ending comes a beginning. And at that point, we end the burying of the trauma. We recognize it. And we really start to own and take responsibility for the journey of the Soul Plan and what that plan may be. We never know what it is, but it kind of, for me, it adds a little bit of adventure.
Yeah.
to the situation. I do just want to put in one caveat, particularly as we're doing this recording at the moment, where there is some such horrendous things going on in the world that we are seeing. And when we talk about challenge, I would just like everybody who's listening to look at the challenge that you've chosen, this particular challenge, what is right for you and your soul growth and your journey. This is not putting any level on how difficult somebody's life is or how not difficult somebody's life is. But I think at this point in time, that's important to say.
Yeah. And
that we are, the people who have a soul plan reading, whose challenges may seem absolutely non-significant to somebody compared to somebody else's. Those people, as they heal, become healers also of this planet. And the more people who heal, then we have a chance of creating a world and a society that we want to live in.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to watch. This transition that we're going through is not easy to watch. But I just wanted to put that one in.
Thank you. Thank you. So you do soul plan readings. You're a medium. You're a psychic. You work with tarot.
I do.
What if somebody has never worked with tarot before? It might scare them. They're kind of like, don't understand it. How would you describe the cards?
So that's a good one, because that is 90% of people's question. Oh, I can't have my tarot read. What if you tell me something bad?
Yeah.
So I then say to them, what's bad? Tell me what bad is for you. And they'll sort of stop. And immediately they go, okay, yeah, maybe there isn't anything bad. So, well, probably the bad thing that you're talking about is that you're going to die. Well, hello.
You're going to die anyway.
We're going to die anyway, all of us, that's for sure. So that kind of softens it. But I use tarot. I started to use tarot because when you work with different cards, when I work with different cards, whether it's angels or oracle or tarot, you're working at different levels. Tarot is quite grounded. It's quite an earthy. And it actually started off as a game.
Yeah.
It was back in the 18th century.
In France, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love the journey, the hero's journey of the tarot. But you can use flowers. You can, some people read palms. Some people use a piece of jewelry. For me, I'm still tuning in to the same guidance and higher power and consciousness that I would, irrespective of what I use. So the workshop that I'm really excited about running is called The Intuitive Life. And the reason I've called it The Intuitive Life is this is not wholly for people who want to look into oracle cards or tarot. It's about opening up your intuition and being able to read a leaf and deliver that same message. But people are very comfortable with cards, and that's why I love it, because when an image comes and you say, look at that wheel, or look at that robin, or we might have just been talking about a robin, and then they will pick a card and a robin will be right there. And it brings a real sense of recognition and connection for them.
Yes.
So where they become uncomfortable, and I have done a few readings where people have said, I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't know what you're talking about. Firstly, if somebody doesn't recognize anything, I always say, look, maybe I'm not the right reader for you. Maybe there is something in this. But if you want me to continue, so I will then send out a message up the pipe to say, can we clarify all this, please? Because this is not being recognized at all. And I will then get a piece of information and the whole thing changes.
Okay.
And often it's maybe because that person wasn't ready to hear what was coming through. So listen, it's such a moving feast. It's a real energetic experience, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But also in a very, my intention is to deliver it. And the same with my sound baths, in a very grounded way, in a very recognizable way that people feel safe.
Yeah.
Because once they feel safe, that's when the real gold can happen.
Yeah, great. So the Intuitive Life is your workshop coming up in September 13th,
yes.
Right? It's a Saturday.
Yeah.
Here in London at the Space.
Yeah.
From 11 to 5, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll put the link. So if somebody is UK based, if they're in London and they want to learn more about this workshop, I'll put the link in the show notes so
Yeah.
we can learn more about it. But the idea is that people are going to tap into their own intuition, be able to start intuiting from the cards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's an experiential workshop that we're going to start off with discussing intuition and the link between the deeper self and self-awareness, and how, you know, living more intuitively can help. Also grounding. So really starting to manage how we're feeling. We're going to also, obviously, we're going to do cards. We're going to have experiential. People will be in groups, or they'll be in pairings. And at the end of the day, my intention is that people will leave with a little sense of magic and a spark in them that says, I've got this.
Yeah. Oh, that is so exciting.
Because it's practice. It will always be practice. But I really, my real intention is for people to be able to feel safe to really open up their energy. And I'll be literally teaching people how to do that.
Great.
No experience necessary. If people have some understanding of chakras or energy or anything, that will be helpful. But I will be, I'll be going through that as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And on a personal note, I feel like I've been quite open for most of my life. And I remember there's this really sweet story with one of my best friends when we were really tiny. All of a sudden, she just like held onto her foot and was like, ow, had excruciating pain in her foot. And I was like, lay down. I put on my mom's Enya CD and I went like this with my hands. And I just put my hands over her ankle. And within like 30 seconds, her pain was gone. And I was like, my hands are warm. What is going on? And I just thought they were magic hands. Yeah. And then 2 decades later, I did a Reiki training. I'm like, that's what that is. And then I've harnessed that more. But it's definitely been a challenge for me as a child, especially, to ground all that open, upwards energy. Yeah. So you will talk about how to open and how to close, right? Because it's important to close and ground that.
Yeah, it's almost more important, I think, because particularly now the world is generally so open. Every time you read a spiritual book, every time you do a meditation on YouTube, you are walking back out into the world wide open and picking up. So a lot of people who are really, really super tired or anxious, half of it's not even their energy. But how are they managing their energy? Generally, day to day, the world is more open. So the grounding and the bringing the energy back and understanding how to manage your energy is as important. That's the kind of the basic of being able to really work. When I do a festival, I probably do about 30 readings a day. I do short bursts all the time. Everybody would get the same reading if I didn't know how to clear through and then restore my energy in a way, so that I can and I do it every 15 minutes. But that has come with many, many years of practice. But I want to share that now. I want to share my ability and that what I've learned over all these years, because I think it's more important more than ever now.
Yeah.
Because everybody is so open. They weren't in my day. They were not at all open.
Well, I think that's a really important nugget that you said, which is if you're feeling really tired and if you're anxious, maybe it's not all you.
No.
So being able to get to know where you end and another begins, being able to understand your own energy and handing back the energy that is not yours is so important. So if somebody's like, oh, I'm kind of curious about that, where do you begin? I mean, something that I do after a session or after I teach is I literally swipe my hands 3 times. I wash my hands and I visualize my whole body being filled with my own energy. And that's just like a tiny thing I'll do after a client or after a class. But say somebody is not holding space or not a yoga teacher, but they're just walking through the world like tired, anxious, feel like they're holding the weight of other people's stuff. What's something like they might be able to do to cleanse their energy? It's a practice to hone, but what would you say?
But there's lots of different ways, but one of the best ways I feel, because it's probably something that somebody does every day, is either shower or bathe, whichever you do. If you bathe, put some Epsom salts in there, Or have a rose quartz crystal and put it in and just imagine that the water is washing off. I say to people, imagine you're covered in Post-it notes and none of them are yours and it's kind of sludgy energy. Or when you shower, imagine there's a much, much bigger shower head above you, which is a light shower, an energetic shower. So when you're in the shower, imagine that your whole energy field is literally being cleansed in your body, outside of your body. And then when you get out of the shower, bang your feet on the ground. So it's grounding. That's the simplest way of really being conscious and looking after your energy. And then put yourself in a bubble. If you feel that you pick up other people's stuff a lot, always put yourself in a bubble. Or, you know, some people put themselves in a cloak and choose a color. I often choose silver because it's like a mirror. So it reflects off. But because I do so much of this work, it is really important. And I'm not always successful at it. Often, you know, I might think, oh, I haven't grounded or I hasn't closed down. And somebody really raging for no reason steps into my energy. I think, okay, my energy must be wide out here, because they wouldn't do that if my energy, it's boundaries.
It's boundaries. Energetic boundaries.
And I do think that the younger generations now do have, it's very difficult with boundaries because of social media and parents of young children. Where are their boundaries with all of this stuff?
Yes.
They're really being tested. But the good thing is, I think they're being tested to find them.
Yeah.
You won't find them unless they're tested. So we will talk about that as well in the workshop, big time.
Great. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Now, I thought it would be really cool to end this conversation with a tarot reading. What do you think? Should we do, is it a collective reading? Is it a personal? What works best in this setting?
Let's just choose a card for the podcast. So anybody who's listening, this is for you.
How exciting.
So I'm going to put both feet on the ground for this.
Okay.
So we have the Psychic Tarot deck here. And maybe actually it would be really nice for anybody listening to, for themselves, just close their eyes and just take a big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And just in your mind, ask yourself the question, what do I need to help me move forwards today? And this may not be for everybody. It may not resonate with everybody, but it will for a few. And I'm just going to literally go. Solitude. Number 9. Now, the first thing I'm going to draw out of that is we're in a 9 year. So if you add 2, 2 and 5, which is 2025, we're in a 9 year. And this year is so much about transformation. And the day that we're doing this podcast, this figure is looking at a book and just taking some time out to explore. And sometimes books on cards can represent that sense of self-awareness and going on an internal journey. So for some of the listeners out there, it is really, this will be a really good time to take some time out. We've got a very big new moon in a couple of days. And so we're already going to shift from Leo season into Virgo season. And Virgo is all about service. So not only do we move into service for ourselves, because that's where we have to start always. We're not helpful to anybody else until we help ourselves first. So this, for me, I would be reading this as a sign of taking some time out and exploring where some tweaks may need to happen over the next few months. But it's beautiful. Look at the light on that card. It's a beautiful sky.
Wow. That one star.
With a 1 star. And that's where we move into looking after ourselves. You know, we have to be our own star first. Let that star shine. Is there anything that you can let go of now that is preventing that star from shining? And that little pilot light inside of us that never goes out, ever, eternally. And what can we do over the next few months before we move into February next year, where big planets change signs, to really start to shine and start to take away some of those layers that might be preventing that process. But there's also a castle. I feel there might be a listener out there who plays a lot of chess or is linked with chess in some way. So have a ponder on that to anybody who's listening. What is the significance of chess and the castle in chess? I don't play chess. I have absolutely no idea, but for some reason chess is coming up. And it's a game. So maybe there's some significance of something about either somebody playing games or just take life more lightly. Just lighten up. It's a game.
It's a game.
We're all going to leave here in the same way at some point. Time for quiet and a bit of solitude.
And I like that, like letting your radiance shine through from the inside out is what I like to imagine. Like,
yeah. Lovely. I love that.
Thank you, Nikki.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, listen.
So nice to chat.
It was so nice to chat with you and get to know your story more and just,
I feel like you didn't know that.
Yeah, go on for ages. But what I'm going to do is I'll pop your info in the show notes below. If anybody wants to do a soul plan reading, contact Nikki. Highly recommend. Workshop in September.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to end the episode the way that we always do, with a full breath in, a complete breath out, and have a lovely day.